Hi, I'm Whitney Sullivan. I'm here for RT Book Reviews, and I'm with the debut author, Amanda Havard, author of The Survivors, a totally phenomenal paranormal fiction novel that I would really suggest you rush out and check out. And Amanda and I are going to tell you all about why you've got to get this book. So, Amanda, your heroine, Sadie, is absolutely mind-blowing. She is, by all accounts, she stopped aging at about 18, right?
Somewhere in there, yeah.
But she's actually been alive for, what, like hundreds of years?
145 years, yeah, you know.
Oh my God, think about all those shoes.
So many shoes.
That's a lot of shoes. But Sadie is not an average human. In addition to her very long lifespan, she comes from a very special background. Can you chat a little bit about her family?
Yeah, her family's an interesting one. So the survivors are 14 kids who were accused as witches during the Salem witch trials, actually. And they were exiled instead of killed, and they found their way to Montana and have been in hiding ever since because they survived. And they don't know why they survived. And they stayed there, decided to raise a family inside a sort of walled compound. And Sadie was the first of that family who just said, you know, this isn't for me. And she left. And she's been out living among humans for 3 years when you meet her.
And can you tell me a little bit about what gives Sadie the inspiration to go out? Because leaving her family, especially when you come from this Puritan upbringing that they've had, that's a really big deal.
Yeah, it is a huge deal. And I think the thing with Sadie is that she'd always felt the pull, always known that there was something outside those walls. There was more than isolation. And every time she got even the tiniest bit of access to the outside world, she really wanted to be more a part of it. In some ways, there were some fundamental things she didn't agree with her family on, and that really sort of pushed the clock. But one thing she did about 25 years before she actually ever left was that she started sneaking out into a bookstore into a nearby town and reading everything she could get her hands on. By all accounts, since she could read supernaturally quickly, that was about 30,000 books or so. And she really, the more she learned about the world outside, the more she just really wanted to get out there. And so she finally found the courage and left.
And I think that's a really hard thing for anybody who's facing, you know, that challenge with the family who you're born from versus the family who you really want to be with. But Sadie doesn't have a very easy time of it once she gets out.
No.
She meets two very special humans, though, Cole and Karina.
Yes.
Can you say a little bit about what makes these two humans so different from everyone else she meets?
Sure. So the first is Karina, and the backstory on Karina is that she met her just randomly in a coffee shop one day, and Karina just sort of took to her and sort of saw that she was flailing a little bit, never asked questions, never looked down on her for it, but just sort of brought her into her world. And I think we can all relate to wanting that in a friend anyway, but especially when you feel out of place, you want that person who's going to reach out to you. And Karina did that for Sadie, and I think she's always adored Karina for it. It's the one human who's ever reached out and really tried to be a part of her life. Cole is probably one of the first guys who did it, and definitely the first guy who did that for her with good intentions. You know, he's just...
Well, because we have to stop and say Sadie is absolutely gorgeous. She's got these purple eyes that I swear I could see as I was reading. So this is not like your plain Jane Puritan girl. She's got her family's supernatural powers.
She does have her supernatural powers, and you know, interestingly, and she really is truly a beautiful person. And rather than that being something, a source of pride for her, it kind of freaks her out almost because it gives her a lot of attention she doesn't want. Mm-hmm. And she does have, like you say, her family's supernatural powers, and she's immortal as well. And because of that, one of her powers is that she can sort of sense people around her, what they're feeling and kind of what they're thinking. Not quite like an empath, but similar. And so if she meets guys, especially, and they're thinking things about her that make her uncomfortable, it's very awkward for her, as it would be for any of us if we knew what the person sitting next to us was really thinking about us and really feeling. And so one of the things that's interesting is when she meets Cole, she can see that his thoughts are just about her and how nice she is and how he'd like to get to know her. And I think that really stands out for her and makes her realize that he's a good guy.
And I think it'll stand out for readers, too. This is such a gentleman's gentleman. He's
Absolutely.
such a sweetheart. But he is not the only person who's vying for her affection, though.
No.
She has a very special other, let's call him a kindred soul out there who she meets. Can you tell us a little bit about Everett?
Yeah, Everett Winter is an interesting guy. I mean, it's not that he's the antithesis of Cole. I mean, he's still a gentleman. He still has a lot of wonderful qualities about him. But like Sadie, he's immortal. And Sadie's wanted nothing but more than to go out into the human world and live like a human among humans. So anybody who's more like her is less what she's looking for. But Everett is, I mean, he's just California cool. She meets him in California, like truly right on the ocean. He's, you know, in Gucci boots and Ray-Bans stepping out of a Maserati. I mean, you just can't not like that. And from the moment she meets him, Sadie, who's usually very reserved and sort of kept to herself, is just, you know, starstruck pretty much. I mean, she can't talk around him. She just feels giddy. And I mean, I think we can relate to that. And that's a reaction she's never had before. So Everett really kind of stands out to her.
But it's not just Everett Winter. The entire Winter family is a new light for her almost.
Absolutely. So Mark, I mean, the first one she meets is his brother Mark, and Mark really stands out to her because he does some crazy things, and it's the first time she's ever met another supernatural outside of her family and outside of those walls, you know, from the city in Montana where they live. And the whole family is great though, because she's never, for having a family of 150 people inside a tiny place, she's never connected to anyone. Not really, with very little exception. And so to walk into a house where there's a loving family, an immortal loving family, living like people in a home and having sort of normality around them, she just connects to everybody. She gets kind of a mother figure out of his mother, and, you know, sister and brother figures out of his siblings.
I mean, it's so nice, and I just have to thank you that the scene between now you're gonna
Jenny.
have to remind me. Thank you, Jenny and Sadie, who as they go back and forth and form this bond of sisterhood. It's just, for anybody who has sisters out there, you will recognize these girls and the feelings that go back and forth between them. They are just absolutely fantastic.
I'm so glad you liked it. I actually don't have a sister, but I have girlfriends and sorority sisters actually who I love deeply, and I think we kind of are starting to get the sister dynamic after this long, and so I'm glad I nailed it.
And so it was definitely very exciting to read about. But these are not the only two families of supernaturals who we meet along the way.
No.
I mean, you've got a very dark and wide world out there.
Absolutely. And actually one of the interesting things about that is that every, except for survivors themselves, every supernatural creature you meet or these families or sort of mythology you hear, it's all real. It's all stuff you can go look up, and it's at least real in the sense that somebody believed it once. So you have a lot of Russian and Romanian lore, and she learns all over, Sadie travels the world learning about other supernatural creatures, basically. A lot she's done before, but some she does in the book while you're with her. And there's a lot that goes into it. And I really have always been drawn to the idea that sometimes there are lines between mythology where you start realizing that one culture's beliefs are heavily influenced by another, or they come from maybe the same place. And so I really wanted to utilize that in the story.
And I think you do. Sadie, she travels all over the world. And while I think that a lot of times this book is going to be great for teens, it also definitely, I would call it paranormal fiction almost, because it has such a it's got a great love story, but it's also got great world building, and it's not just for teens or for readers who like YA. It's definitely for readers who enjoy a good paranormal.
I'm glad you said that, because I think that was the goal. I love young adult, and that's definitely, YA is the place I wanted to be, but I also know that my friends who read YA, my friends who are 20 years older than I am who read YA, love so many parts of it, and then maybe they love other parts of it a little less. And so I wanted to sort of find that common ground where everybody can relate. You know, Sadie, the Winters, everybody's still young at heart, you could say, because they're all, they've all been around for hundreds of years. But at the very least, everybody, they're going through experiences that you've been through and you'll go through probably again. So it's relatable to, 14 and 40 and above and below, I guess.
So The Survivors is the first in a series, and I know that everybody else who reads this is going to be absolutely as excited as I am to get my hands, and your hands, on the next book. It is so fun. So I have to ask, can you please, please, please share a detail about the next Survivors story? Okay,
well, the question I get asked absolutely the most from just everybody every day is, will there be more Cole in book 2? And I can definitely promise there will be more Cole in book 2.
Oh, good.
Doesn't mean there'll be any less Everett. It just means there'll be more Cole as well.
So right now you can check out The Survivors. It's in bookstores and online all over, and great for all of your e-reading devices. And you can plan to see The Survivors' Point of Origin?
Point of Origin.
The Survivors' Point of Origin coming out just about next summer, right?
Yep, that's right.
So this was Amanda Havard, and I'm Whitney Sullivan for RT Book Reviews.